Let me tell you an interesting story first. So, long before, when people started cooking and they discovered fire and they got to know that they can use fire for cooking purposes, they felt the need to store the food that they were cooking. So, this led to an invention of things that we call container today, just like this one. Time progressed, people became more and more sophisticated and they started following a very useful pattern. And this pattern involves storing different foods and different types of food in different containers. For example, storing cheese in certain containers, storing breads in certain form of containers, which will be suitable for the food item and for also enhance the storage capacities and utility for the facility. And if you are a merry bachelor and you don't have any pressure from anyone, so I don't think that you will be following certain sophistications like this, and you will be storing whatever you want in whichever position, in whichever containers you want. But wait, the video was about programming, right? So let me connect the dots for you. The containers are used to store food, but in programming, containers are used to store useful values that will be used in your code snippets and are useful. And the sophisticated people that I have mentioned are nothing, just high level languages like Python and Java. So this type of programming languages follow a certain paradigm, and which involves, let's say, so you will first name the variable. Let's name it as num. Then you will initialize it using int num is equal to 3. So you just initialize the variable as an integer type. So if you try to store your name in this variable, you will be prompted by the computer by an error. Languages like Java and C++, they don't allow you to store integer variables in string variables, and they are very particular about storing which variables is initialized with which data types or which types of data. But our Python is very easygoing and a very simple language to understand. It has no restrictions and you can store whatever you want in a variable. You can store an in numeric value, let's say 3, and then you can remove the value and then you can store your name. Now, the answer to the real question that why is Python different from Java and C++? So in simple terms, Python programming doesn't need the variables to be initialized with certain data types. And if you want an in-depth explanation, here it is. So if you are asked by an interviewer or if you are asked in a very formal way, you can answer it if you understand this. So Java and C++ are nothing just statically typed languages. By statically typed languages, I mean that when the computer tries to decode certain this type of languages, so it will use a compiler, and while using a compiler, it will undergo each and every detail of the code and it will read each and every line with very detail. So it will also use a stack to refer what kind of variables you have stored, and their values will be stored in a stack. So if it is stored in a stack, first of all, a stack is the thing just in English, stack means store on top of something else. So in programming also, stack means the value that you are using currently will be stored on top of a value that is pre-existing. Similarly, if you are using compilers, it will use a real stack to store the value that you have just initialized. Now, the stack needs an offset value, and what is this offset value? It's nothing. For example, we have initialized a variable called int num, and it's initialized as 3. So it is an integer type value which is also stored in a numeric way. So this offset value will be the size of the integer data type, and it is 4 in case of Java. So the offset value will be 4, and after 4 bytes of memory in the memory locations, you can use to store something else. So offset value is nothing just the location which can be used further to store something else next. And it seems a bit complicated, and it is very complicated in terms of statically typed languages, and we don't need to know if you are using Python. So Python is nothing like this languages. It is dynamically typed languages. By dynamically typed languages, I mean that in Python, there is no need to initialize the variables. And why is it? Because it is decoded by the computer using an interpreter. And using an interpreter is just means that the computer just overlooks everything, and it just checks for syntactical and spelling errors, nothing else. It won't be bothered by what type of variables you are using and what are their data types. It doesn't have actually a true stack. There is no stack used in an interpreter. So to be simple and to sum up that, Python programming doesn't need the use of initializing the variables and initializing the variables like integer, string. It doesn't need that. It's very simple. Also, the creator of Python, Guido van der Rossum, actually intended Python to be the most simplest language to be learned and it to be very understandable and readable. So his main and the most crucial decision was not to include data types while initializing a variable, which actually led to the programming being very simple. So that's the real reason that Python does not include variable initializing with data types, and it is very simple language.